Hey, what's up, guys? This is Cody the Coin Raptor, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about what's been going on with the Bitcoin price, why bears are getting overly complacent, and the huge potential short squeeze that is setting up in the Bitcoin price. So, over the last couple of days, we've seen the Bitcoin price fall, going all the way from about 66,000 to actually below 60K at about 59K. And before, I've said multiple times that as long as Bitcoin holds that 60K region, I'm actually feeling very bullish. So far, Bitcoin has held this important support here, but we have seen it dip below that, crucially going to about 58K or so, and then rebounding over the last day. And so, in this video, we're going to talk more about what this means for the Bitcoin price, my expectations for the Bitcoin price, and why I think bears really are getting more than they bargained for. So we've seen Bitcoin hit extreme fear. We're still stuck at extreme fear right now at about a 14. And the sentiment right now is about as bad as I've seen it in the time that I've done these videos on this channel for the past five, call it 6 years. I've seen nothing but pessimism. People look at the price here and they assume that Bitcoin is going to do what it did back in 2022. I have a whole video on why I think that's probably not going to be the case. But the TLDR of it is essentially we're stuck in a midterm kind of cycle where Bitcoin is going to continue to fall, kind of like it did back in 2022, where it would fall and fall and fall and fall and bottom out sometime between Q3 and Q4. Now, again, I don't think that's going to be the case, frankly, because we're in a completely different situation. But the bears right now have been utterly insufferable, frankly, and they're getting really, really complacent on the Bitcoin price, and they're setting themselves up for a pretty nasty short squeeze. I think that it's possible that we could see. Now, Bitcoin is down, and the reason why Bitcoin is down is because we continue to have these large scale long liquidations, these leveraged long liquidations. We had on the 23rd of June about $300 million worth of longs get liquidated. The next day, another $300 million worth of longs get liquidated. And this has been something consistently that we've seen as part of this bear market is that we've seen just a huge number of longs get liquidated and then they double down and they get liquidated again and they double down and they get liquidated again. And so far, we're seeing this pattern play out multiple times. And these bears have dragged the price down with the help of these leveraged longs that get automatically liquidated when the Bitcoin price falls below a certain level. And finally, I think that we're getting this leverage out of the system. Though that being said, it is possible we do see more cascading longs. However, I think that we're going to wind up seeing some exhaustion here, and the sentiment is bound to change. So we've also seen the Bitcoin spot ETFs have a large amount of outflows. In fact, this last week again was another week where we saw almost $2 billion worth of these ETF outflows. And this has been killer. Over the last 7 weeks, nothing but straight outflows from Bitcoin ETFs. That's another reason why the Bitcoin price has been low. Well, it's been moving lower and lower and lower. Eventually, we are going to see this seller exhaustion set in. It cannot continue to sell and continue to have nothing but outflows. Eventually, everyone who is interested in selling will have sold, and then we'll finally wind up seeing a bottom in the price. And I think that's going to happen sooner than later. Okay. In addition to that, looking at your Bitcoin exchange liquidation map, I'm going to show you here that the shorts are getting over their heads yet again. In fact, there is about $6.4 billion worth of shorts that could potentially be liquidated if Bitcoin can climb back to 68K. Now, again, looking at the other side, looking at the long side, you're looking at only $2 billion worth of long leverage on the other side going down to 52K. And keep this in mind, 52K is an incredibly important level. We're going to get to that in a minute. But just know that this level right here that we're seeing in the short liquidation leverage, it's been absolutely crazy. In fact, if you go all the way up here to about 68,500, you're looking at $1.8 billion worth of shorts that could get liquidated if Bitcoin can climb up to 68,500. Now, that is an absolutely huge short squeeze if we get any sort of momentum whatsoever in the Bitcoin price. Now, again, Bitcoin bears are going to pile in and they're going to say, we're going to 35K, we're going to 40K. And this is classic peak bear market behavior. I saw this back in 2022. I saw this back in 2020. They just don't know when to stop. But eventually, we are going to wear out the bears and we're going to get a nasty ripper rally short squeeze that's going to obliterate all of these shorts. And then we're going to get market equilibrium. This happens every single cycle. We see this where first the bears get overextended and then they get punished, and then the bulls get overextended and they get punished, and it just keeps going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and we finally get price equilibrium. We've seen that multiple times over the Bitcoin cycle. Now, Bitcoin right now is undervalued. If you take a look at the realized price, which you can think of kind of like a average cost basis, it's sitting at about 53K. Okay, so really not that far from where Bitcoin is right now. It rarely ever goes below the realized price, though it does in the deepest part of the bear market. You do tend to see that happen, and sometimes very briefly happen, and then it pops back up again. So it's about 53,000. That's where I would expect some strong support. Now, if you take a look at the MVRV score, the Z score is basically taking that amount there, the circulating market value, and subtracting the realized market value, and then dividing it by the standard deviation of the circulating market value, and that gives you a Z score. And we're at a Z score right now of about 0.21 or so compared to where Bitcoin has been in the past. This is the cheapest Bitcoin Z score that we've seen going all the way back to about March or so of 2023, frankly, a long time ago, and just after the bear market bottom. So we haven't seen any Bitcoin price as undervalued as going all the way back to March of 2023. And we're starting to see that bear market behavior really start to take hold. Okay. Now, that being said, Bitcoin is undervalued. It doesn't mean it can't be more undervalued. In fact, we have seen in the past during the absolute worst parts of the bear market, it actually go negative. In fact, in the November of 2022, we saw it go down to negative 0.28. And that is probably the lowest that I've ever seen it. If Bitcoin does go negative on the Z score, I'll make a whole video about it. This is basically the best possible buying opportunity for Bitcoin if it goes negative. And if you guys want to see a video on that, make sure you like and subscribe to this video. I will make a video on it and I will be buying heavily during that time. So we've seen a large amount of purchases, a large amount of ads going to the whale wallet, Mr. 100. Mr. 100 continues to add additional Bitcoin to their wallet. In fact, going all the way back to about the 24th, he added approximately about 550 Bitcoin to the wallet, which is a pretty significant amount. This whale wallet has been adding Bitcoin, but they've also been moving Bitcoin away as well. They continue to accumulate as long as Bitcoin heads lower. And in fact, I think this is probably the best option going on here. I think this whale wallet will continue to make serious money considering they know exactly when to buy and exactly when to sell. Maybe they know something that we don't here. But that being said, this whale wallet, I continue to look for guidance when it comes to buying and selling. Next, last thing I want to talk about is the miner's reserve, the number of coins in a miner's wallet. Now, the miner's reserve, we're seeing this actually kind of start to level out, and that means that miners basically have stopped selling, and they've stopped selling basically because the price continues to fall. And so these miners, they've been selling significantly. They tend to sell a lot when the Bitcoin price is high and then slow down as the Bitcoin price moves lower. And you're seeing here that they sold significantly from July of 2025 going all the way down to about May or so, or March of 2026. And then they kind of bottomed out, and then we saw a rise in the number of coins in miners' wallets, and they're now starting to level out a little bit. So that's a bit of selling pressure that seems to have abated by today, but we'll have to see. I'll be monitoring this as closely as I can. Now, Bitcoin right now is in a difficult situation. We're in a tough environment, and there seems to be continued pessimism in the Bitcoin price. But this is so important, folks, that we stay bullish, that we keep our eyes on the prize, which is long term for Bitcoin, and not get wrapped up in the short term momentum. Okay. Bitcoin is going back to 100K. It's only a matter of time. Adoption continues regardless of what the price action is doing. And keep that in mind. Don't get down on this. Don't check the charts every day. Let me do that. And if you guys are interested in more content, please make sure you like and subscribe and comment below. That's all I've got for you today. Hope to catch you guys in the next video.